In the winter of 1967, Australia was led by a man who seemed confident, energetic, and firmly in control of the nation's future. His name was Holt. He was young for a national leader, charismatic in public, and deeply trusted by many of his colleagues. Only a year earlier, he had risen to the highest office in the country, becoming the 17th Prime Minister of Australia. Few could have imagined that within months, this powerful leader would become the center of one of the strangest political mysteries in modern history. Because on a warm summer morning in December 1967, Holt would walk into the ocean and never be seen again. A political life begins. Harold Edward Holt was born on August 5, 1908, in Sydney, Australia. His early life was not particularly glamorous. His parents separated when he was still young, and much of his childhood was spent moving between relatives. Despite the instability, Holt proved to be a capable and determined student. He later attended the prestigious Wesley College in Melbourne, before continuing his studies at the University of Melbourne, where he pursued a Bachelor of Laws, LLB degree. Friends and classmates described him as intelligent, polite, and quietly ambitious. Even in his early 20s, Holt already showed a strong interest in public service and national affairs. Australia in the early 20th century was a young country, still defining its political identity after federating only a few decades earlier. For a young man with ambition and talent, politics offered both opportunity and influence, and Holt was determined to take that path. Entering Parliament. In 1935, at just 27 years old, Harold Holt entered the Australian House of Representatives, representing the electorate of Fawkner in Victoria. He was a member of the Liberal Party of Australia, one of the country's major political forces. From the start, Holt was seen as a rising figure within the party. He possessed a calm speaking style and a reputation for careful decision-making. Unlike some politicians known for dramatic speeches, Holt preferred a quieter approach, working behind the scenes, building relationships, and gaining the trust of senior leaders. Over the years, he steadily climbed the ranks of government. He served in several ministerial roles, including positions overseeing labour, immigration, and treasury affairs. These roles placed him at the centre of major national decisions during a period when Australia was rapidly changing. Post-war Australia. After World War II, Australia entered a new era of growth and transformation. The population was expanding. Immigration programs were bringing millions of new residents from Europe, and the country's economy was growing stronger each year. As Minister for Immigration during part of this period, Holt helped administer policies that reshaped Australian society. These programs encouraged migration and economic development, helping turn Australia into a more diverse and modern nation. But politics was rarely simple. Many policies of that era were controversial by modern standards, particularly immigration policies that favoured certain regions of the world. Still, within government circles, Holt developed a reputation as a practical and capable administrator, and his influence continued to grow. The long road to power. For years, Holt served under Australia's longest-serving Prime Minister, Robert Menzies. Menzies was a dominant figure in Australian politics, leading the country through economic expansion and Cold War tensions. Under Menzies, Holt became one of the most trusted members of the cabinet. He served as Treasurer of Australia, managing key economic policies and government finances. By the early 1960s, Holt was widely viewed as a natural successor. He had decades of political experience, strong support within the Liberal Party, and a reputation for stability. So when Robert Menzies finally retired in January 1966, the transition of power came quickly. Harold Holt was chosen as the new leader of the Liberal Party. Soon after, he became the Prime Minister of Australia. A new kind of leader. At 57 years old, Holt brought a different style to leadership. He was more relaxed than his predecessor, more approachable, more modern. He enjoyed swimming, fishing, and spending time near the ocean. Friends often described him as energetic and adventurous. But his time as Prime Minister also came during a tense period in global politics. The Cold War dominated international relations, and one conflict in particular was beginning to demand attention from Western nations: the war in Vietnam. Australia and the Vietnam War. During the 1960s, Australia was closely aligned with the United States in foreign policy. The government believed that the spread of communism in Southeast Asia could threaten regional stability. So when the Vietnam War escalated, Australia committed military forces to support American operations. Holt strongly supported this alliance. During a visit by the US President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1966, Holt delivered a phrase that would later become famous and controversial. He declared that Australia would go all the way with LBJ. The statement symbolized Australia's deep commitment to the United States during the war. While many supported this stance, others criticized the growing involvement in Vietnam. Protests against the war began appearing in Australian cities. Still, Holt remained confident in his decisions. To supporters, he was a leader defending national security and international alliances. To critics, he was too closely tied to foreign policy decisions made in Washington. A leader under pressure. Despite political challenges, Holt's popularity remained relatively strong during much of his first year as Prime Minister. In fact, during the 1966 federal election, his party achieved a major victory. The Liberal Party of Australia secured one of the largest electoral wins in the country's history. It seemed that Holt's leadership had strong public support. Yet behind the scenes, the responsibilities of office were intense. The Cold War, international diplomacy, economic management, and domestic political debates all demanded constant attention. Friends later said Holt appeared increasingly tired at times. But whenever he could escape the pressures of politics, he returned to one of his favorite places, the sea. A lifelong love of the ocean. Harold Holt had always been an enthusiastic swimmer and diver. He loved the Australian coastline and often spent time at beaches near Melbourne. One of his favourite areas was along the rugged southern coast of Victoria. The waves there could be powerful, the currents unpredictable. While he was confident in the water, friends noted he was not considered particularly strong in rough surf conditions. Swimming was more than a hobby. It was part of his routine. Even as Prime Minister, he often swam in open ocean waters. To him, it was freedom, a break from the pressure of politics. A moment of quiet away from the responsibilities of running a nation. But the ocean, as many sailors know, can be both beautiful and unforgiving. December 1967. As the year 1967 came to an end, Holt planned a short break near the coast. He travelled to Portsea, a seaside town in Victoria where he had access to a beach house. It was meant to be a simple weekend trip. Relaxation, fresh air, swimming in familiar waters. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just a Prime Minister enjoying time away from the capital. But within days, the quiet coastal trip would turn into a national emergency. Because on the morning of December 17, 1967, Harold Holt would visit a beach known for its powerful currents, a place locals respected and sometimes feared, Cheviot Beach. Before the day was over, Australia's Prime Minister would vanish into the sea, pulled away by the rip currents, never to be seen again. December 17, 1967 began like a warm summer morning along the southern coast of Australia. On that Sunday, Prime Minister Harold Holt travelled to a remote stretch of coastline near Portsea with several companions, including friends and neighbours who had joined him for a weekend outing. The air was calm and the day was bright. But the sea told a different story. The waters near Cheviot Beach were known for their powerful currents and unpredictable surf. Beneath the surface, strong rip currents moved through the narrow channel between the Australian mainland and nearby coastal formations. Some of Holt's companions hesitated about entering the water. The waves looked rough, and the beach had a reputation among locals as one of the more dangerous swimming spots along the Victorian coastline. But Holt appeared confident. He had long been known as an enthusiastic ocean swimmer and often swam in challenging conditions. Witnesses later said he seemed relaxed as he approached the shoreline. After changing into his swimming trunks, Holt walked toward the surf and entered the water. At first, everything seemed normal. He moved forward through the waves with the steady strokes of someone experienced in ocean swimming. But within moments, the powerful current began pulling him farther from shore. The movement of the water was stronger than expected. Instead of returning toward the beach, Holt was quickly carried outward by the rip. His companions watched as he drifted farther away. Some shouted warnings. Others considered entering the water to help him, but the surf was rough, and the current was clearly dangerous. Within minutes, the Prime Minister of Australia was being swept farther and farther from the beach. Then suddenly, he vanished beneath the waves. At first, those watching believed he might resurface. Experienced ocean swimmers sometimes disappear briefly beneath large swells before rising again. Seconds passed, then a minute, but Holt never came back up. The Prime Minister of Australia had vanished. The disappearance triggered immediate alarm. Within hours, one of the largest search operations in Australian history began. Police, rescue divers, naval units and helicopters were deployed along the coastline. The search effort was supported by the Royal Australian Navy, along with the Australian Army, Air Force and local rescue teams. Divers repeatedly entered the dangerous waters, scanning the seabed for any sign of Holt. Helicopters flew low across the coastline, searching the waves. Boats combed the surrounding waters. Hundreds of people became involved in the operation. The entire country was watching. Newspapers across Australia reported the shocking news. A sitting Prime Minister had disappeared in the ocean. For days, search teams continued their efforts. But the conditions made recovery extremely difficult. The waters near Cheviot Beach were known for powerful undertows and rip currents capable of pulling swimmers far into open water. Divers risked their lives searching beneath the waves. But despite the massive effort, no body was ever recovered. Eventually, after days of searching, officials reached the most likely conclusion. Harold Holt had drowned. The powerful ocean currents had carried him out to sea. Yet for many Australians, the explanation never felt entirely satisfying, because something about the situation seemed almost too strange to believe. How could a national leader simply vanish? With no body, no final evidence, only the ocean. And so, over time, theories began to emerge. Theories and speculation. When unexplained events happen, especially involving powerful figures, people often search for alternative explanations. In the years after Holt's disappearance, several theories began circulating. Some were grounded in speculation. Others drifted into outright conspiracy. The most widely accepted explanation remained the simplest one. Holt had been an experienced swimmer, but even strong swimmers can be overwhelmed by dangerous ocean conditions. Cheviot Beach was known for powerful rip currents capable of pulling swimmers far into open water. In this version of events, Holt simply underestimated the danger of the sea that day. But other theories soon appeared. One speculation suggested Holt might have taken his own life, though investigators found no evidence supporting that claim. Friends and colleagues insisted there had been no signs of such intentions. Another theory emerged during the tense political climate of the Cold War. Some rumors suggested Holt had been secretly picked up by a submarine belonging to China. According to this theory, he had been a covert intelligence asset and staged his disappearance to defect. Historians and investigators later dismissed the idea as pure fiction. There was never any credible evidence supporting it. Yet the mystery of the missing Prime Minister allowed such stories to spread. Because when a body is never found, certainty becomes impossible, and uncertainty invites imagination. Over time, these theories became part of Australian folklore. But historians today largely agree on the most likely explanation. The ocean simply claimed him, a nation in shock. The disappearance of Harold Holt stunned Australia. For the first time in the country's history, a sitting Prime Minister had vanished while in office. Without a body to recover, the nation held a memorial service rather than a traditional funeral. Leaders from around the world attended. Among them was US President Lyndon B. Johnson, who traveled to Australia to honor Holt's memory. It was a powerful reminder of how significant Holt had been on the global stage. Within Australia, political leadership soon passed to a new government. But the strange circumstances of Holt's disappearance were never forgotten, and perhaps the most unusual tribute came years later. In Melbourne, a public swimming facility was named in his honor. It became known as the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Centre. Many people have pointed out the strange irony of naming a swimming pool after a man believed to have drowned in the ocean. But for Australians, the memorial also symbolized something deeper, a reminder of a leader who loved the sea, the mystery that never fully ended. Today, decades later, the story of Harold Holt remains one of the most unusual chapters in modern political history. A prime minister, a confident ocean swimmer, a summer morning at the beach, and an ocean that refused to give him back. There were no final words, no goodbye, just the moment when he stepped into the water and disappeared. And even now, more than half a century later, the question still lingers in the minds of many Australians. What exactly happened in those final moments beyond the waves of Cheviot Beach? The official answer may be simple, but the mystery remains. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more fascinating stories.